Thank you for joining us on LinkedIn. Today, we're going to do a live stream and we're going to tackle the challenge of CRMs and AI. How do you make the two of them work together, or is it too early to see real gains? In order to figure this out, I have chosen two subject matter experts to help us, and we're going to look through the different odds and ends and try to figure out, can it be helpful or not? So I'm going to start with noted author Michael Hudlow. He has over 2 decades of ITM and IT, pardon me, and CRM experience, and he most recently wrote a book on how not to mess up your CRM as well as the speech. So our second speaker is an AI best practice visionary, and he's also the CEO of Sentia AI, Mr. David Forder. To our listeners, thank you for joining us. And if any of you have any specific AI or CRM questions during the show, please just add in the comment section and we'll go through it as we go through. And at the end, if there's any we haven't answered, we'll address them right now. So without further ado, let's start the interview. And Michael, would you please tell our audience a little bit about your background, how your IT experience evolved, and what is your experience with CRMs?
Sure. Thanks, Dave. Well, I've been in the industry for more than 20 years at the global level, running large IT systems, and specifically with CRMs, just over 16 years, running global teams, 16 years, and then also doing some consulting work in that arena as well.
Hey, well, that's really interesting. So it definitely seems like you've got the chops to understand the space. And obviously, one of the biggest questions is, at what point did you decide that you needed to share your wealth of knowledge with the world and write a book? Because writing a book's, even with the age of AI, that's a pretty big endeavor. What made you say, ooh, let's write this book?
Well, it's interesting. I wrote the book somewhat out of frustration, somewhat out of not being able to find the information that I was seeing that people were either hiring me to repair or what I was doing from an operational standpoint. And meaning I kept seeing the same things over and over again. And despite the amount of certifications that you can get or the amount of people you can hire that are experts in areas, the recurring problems weren't addressed in those certifications or the books that were out on the market. So literally one day I sat down and did the proverbial take out the laptop and start writing sentences, and decided I had something to say on the matter, and I think it was very helpful. It was helpful, I think, for the readers, and it's also, quite frankly, it was very helpful for myself to write it.
Really cool. So if we can, we're going to put up the URL to your book. You can get it on Amazon.com. And later on, I'm going to tell you that Michael may have hooked us up with a really cool discount. But let's get back to this a little bit. So, over the last 5 years, when you've been interviewing all these high-level Cs for this book, what was the most interesting that you learned? And what do you think would be most interesting to our attendees today?
In short, I think the most interesting thing was, or the most, let's just say, the discovery that I made, for lack of a better term, was the fact that it was not a technical matter. Sorry, there's a fly here that's decided.
No problem.
There is, most things were, of the major systems out there, they can all almost certainly solve the problems that are out in the market. And certainly things are complex, but the real problems that people were experiencing were really of human nature, a business process, of adoption. So, I'll explain it to you this way. Number one problem was what I would say the setting of core expectations of what leadership at a company should expect when the system goes live. And obviously that's a very deep topic, and you can talk about many reasons of what should and shouldn't be. Secondly, adoption itself. Why are people not gravitating to this system that on paper, or when you read about it and they think, why wouldn't they want to be using that? And it usually has to do with suspicion or change management, or these people, more veteran people, got to where they are when CRMs didn't exist. So why would they adopt them now? And then, from a leadership standpoint, also the ROI was not, there wasn't there wasn't the ROI change that they figured they would have. And that's really it. And I think the biggest thing is that people think if they're going down the wrong path, that change would be expensive, or it's another widget you have to buy. And usually it's not. It's much more. Not saying it's necessarily simpler, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a huge investment to make things from not meeting expectations to doing what you thought it would always do.
So that sounds like three really strong things to look for. So with that in mind, and now that you've talked about their top three, and there's usually probably more like 5 to 10 for most companies. So what are the top few ways that we've just talked about the CRM systems fail, and that you think AI might be able to change or assistance or make that area a little bit better? Are there a few that you can think
sure.
of?
Yeah, well, as I just mentioned, and I'll pick one of the points that I'd said, is that, with your more veteran, more serious, whether they're salespeople or professionals or whatever you have the CRM system doing at your firm or company, there are established processes, right? And each department, each region, each geographic area usually has their own type of process. And then when CRM comes in, more often than not, those processes have been consolidated down to, let's just call it best of breed or best practice. And therefore the uniqueness that your professionals sometimes says, my gosh, I have to change my way, and I don't want to change my way. AI, and also, there's flexibility of reports, but there's still a limited level of reports, or reports now have to be, submitted to some department to make reports for you. AI can help that because they still allow for the individuality of a user to say, I can still deal with this system, even if it's flexible, they can still be perceived as being quasi-rigid. And I can use AI to ask questions in the way I want, to give me information in the way I want. So it allows for like an icing on the cake. If the cake is the CRM system, now you have an icing layer that really meets the individual's need and therefore boosts the adoption, which I also had mentioned was one of the problems with CRM systems not meeting expectations.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, adoption is always one of the top two, if not number one problem with almost every CRM system. So, you know what? I was talking to you the other day, and we were like, "Oh, you need covers for those guys that pay those big price tags." They convinced the CFO and the CEO, "Hey, you got to buy this this exciting CRM and all the ROI." Well, that was one of the things you talked about. And I was like, you know what? I feel bad for those people. It's like in the old days when you buy IBM, you can't get fired because you buy IBM. Is it today you buy Salesforce and you can't get fired because I bought the number one CRM or HubSpot or whatever. I bought the top brand. But what I see happening is those people need a little bit of cover so that you can put more money in to actually fix the problem, right? And they're always going to say, the CFO is going to say, hang on, I spent this per seat. You came back to me and it was 3 to 4 times that cost to do the discovery, the configuration, and then the training. So what are you selling me this time, right? So there's a kind of a challenge there. So one of the things that you talked about that I really liked was you talked about CRM recovery services and who are the best recipients of CRM recovery services in an organization that's gone through a bad install. Could you tell me a little bit about your thinking on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's predominantly from a consulting side what I do. And it's interesting because there's really two sides to that coin. The first side is I'll take the C-suite, the CIOs, CTOs, chief marketing officers, and let's just say it's 2 to 3 years down the path of an implementation. Now, this also could be pre-implementation during CRM selection, but I'm going to focus on the 2 to 3 year down since you talked about recovery. Those individuals are usually on the hot seat if it hasn't met the board of directors or the CEO's expectations, and they need an unbiased opinion to come in and say, here's what they did. Here's what they got right. The fact that you spent X amount of millions with whatever it is, Dynamics or Oracle or Salesforce or whomever, that was the right decision. But there's some
Right.
tweaks that need to be made. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Usually the technical tools, the big ticket items that you've already spent are sufficient. It's now going back and saying, where was a little bit of the fumble, and so they get the cover they need from an outside source such as myself to come in and say, this is why it was done, this is why it's right, and this is the small amount that could be done to make it right. On the other side of the coin, I get the CEOs or the board of director type saying, this is the path we went down, prove to me this was right and I didn't get the wool pulled over my eyes, potentially by a vendor or whomever.
And half the time that vendor is 5 years in the back rear view mirror, so to speak, and nowhere to be found to help you out on that. So with that in mind, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I was just going to add to that. Sorry for that interruption, but what I was going to say is, and there's the other case that I guess it's a three-sided coin I just made, is that a lot of times vendors come in and pick any one of the big ones that I just mentioned, and you as a consumer go to them and say, hey, I want to do X or Y or Z. The first thing they want to do usually is sell you more widget, and
right.
and the answer there is that necessary? Can we do with AI assistant and the core system? Can we do that a different way? And that's the other argument. So I sorry to interrupted. Go ahead.
No, that was a very good point. The three-sided coin. It definitely seems like there's at least that, if not more.
Yeah,
so
you talked well.
Yeah. So with so many CRMs already installed in the world, and with all the stuff that you said already, how would you fix a failed CRM system that the company, the people, the front line, that everybody's lost faith in it? And so now I've hired you, Mr. Michael Hudlow, consultant, to come in and fix my CRM. What would you do? What are the top 3 things you would do first?
Yeah, the first thing is listen. Anyone who goes in, and I will just say as a warning, any consultant or even temporary hire or full-time hire comes in and starts making changes for the sake of making changes, it's a big mistake. You need to get a reliable list, and you're going to have to determine what that list looks like or who's on that list of individuals at a firm that have opinions. And the people who have the worst opinions are the ones you want to talk to first. And it's why. Why don't you like it? Is it data related? Even if it's data related, why? I mean, it's obviously we all know garbage in, garbage out, and that's also going to flow through to AI. You have bad information that AI is going to look at. You can't have it because the answers are going to be bad. And then once an answer becomes bad, it becomes an untrustworthy tool. So you have to listen to the people, and let's just say, make this up. You listen to the leaders of 10 different divisions, for example, and say, here's the question I ask all of them. How do you, Mr. or Mrs. Leader, get your information right now? Are they still using an Excel spreadsheet they've been using for 40 years? I mean, if they're still doing that, right off the bat, you have an adoption issue, which they may be personally the root of the problem. And 2 is why don't they use the reports that are available to them? Were they maybe not made? Were they, maybe they were just completely missed. And then all of a sudden, if they are missed on those reports, that means that they perceive the CRM system as another administrative hurdle, as opposed to a tool that they can put in 5% and get 20% back. And that's the model that works. So you just go down that line, and then you start making your goal statements. And then after you have your goal statements and you go back to everybody, then you can start making a project. But if you make a project first, you're going to be in the same boat they're already in, just 2 more years down the path.
Yeah, and I see what also happens is that lots of times companies will set their sales process or their marketing support process for sales, and they'll set it and forget it. And I think one of the things that you've just said is that you really need to be getting some outside in looks on a fairly regular basis to make sure, am I doing best practices? Am I still using the process in the way we envision? And is it actually doing what we wanted, right? So I think that makes so much sense to me on multiple levels. So, hey, Mike, this is really great information. And besides reading your book, which I encourage everybody to do, and you can check out that URL, do you have a cheat sheet or something people could take a quick look at, a quick hitter? Because, you laid out these are the top 3 things for the fixing a failed CRM. And so I can really think that folks would appreciate that.
Yeah, I do. And I've provided for you guys, and I would say please make that available to anybody who gives them the information required on your sign up forms. I created 4 cheat sheets for leaders, system administrators, internal users, and then also project teams. So. And feel free to read any one of the 4, and then each one of them goes to a link to my website to give a few more. And I guess what I would say is, when I set out to write the book, I thought I was going to write 120 pages, and it actually became 520 pages. So just like those cheat sheets, if you read them and they seem to be going down in a direction that you like, I would definitely say click on the links and then consider buying the book, because it's just a lot more of the same.
Yeah, your book's amazing. It's 400 pages of goodness. All right. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate your time. And we're going to bring you back in for act number 3, where we're going to have a CRM AI roundtable on the future of CRM and AI. But at this point, I'd like to introduce our second speaker, Mr. David Forder. David, thanks for joining our live stream. And would you please be so kind as tell our listeners about your background and how you came to use AI and CRM so much earlier than everybody else?
Yep. And one of my teams put in the LinkedIn chat links, Michael, to your cheat sheets and giveaways and things, as well as some contact information. So the link's in the, because someone just asked if we missed the link, it's in the LinkedIn event chat. Thanks, David. My name's David Forder. I'm CEO at Sentia, and I'll give you a bit of a sort of background and talk about my CRM/AI journey. I guess it began in about 2005. So I'd co-founded what grew to be quite a large sales staffing agency in Australia and Asia Pacific. So we grew it to about 1,500 reps. Felt we were at that stage back then in 2005 where we really should have an effective CRM. I think prior to that, we were using ACT. So for the older members of the audience, they might remember ACT. I brought in Salesforce.com. So in Australia and Asia Pacific, we were really early adopters for Salesforce as a CRM. As I said, I had 1,500 reps. I rolled out the CRM expecting huge results and outcomes. And after a year and a half, we didn't really see that much value. And I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but there were some big issues with adoption. There was a lot of pushback from my team of reps. And I had to solve it because we were spending a lot of money on enterprise edition seats at that stage. Because I was a sort of hobby developer, I started building applications on Salesforce to get more value for the sales team out of the platform. And it became pretty obvious that to achieve that, I needed to ask the salespeople what they wanted from their CRM.
Right.
I set up a working group, ran for about a year and a half. And at the end of it, and I've published a white paper and spoken about this on LinkedIn before, at the end of it, we kind of condensed down to exactly what sales teams want from their CRM. And then following that working group, we set about trying to build it. And it was a sort of forerunner to what we now have in the market as Sentia AI. So the outcomes just briefly were pretty simple and intuitive, but no one seems to ask salespeople what they want from CRM. So those outcomes were basically, they want the software to tell them exactly what they need to do every day to be successful. They don't want to have to do the work. They don't have to want to stare and compare and enter information. They would love their CRM to just tell them what to do every day, who to call, who to meet with, who to email, who's due for a follow-up automatically. The second piece that they wanted was they wanted the software, the CRM, to automatically tell them how they're performing, how are they traveling towards achieving their quotas, their benchmarks, how are they comparing against teammates. So do all of that for them automatically, as I said, without having to spend hours staring at reports and dashboards. The third piece, which is particularly important for millennials and Gen Zs, is they wanted the software that they use at work to improve their skills. So they wanted it to coach them, to help them get better at their craft. So it was those three things. Just tell me what I have to do all the data admin, show me how I'm performing towards my quotas without me having to put hours into that, and teach me, coach me on how I can get better. The fourth piece that came out is they want all of that, but they want in a really simple user interface. So back in 2011, 12, we set about trying to build that. We didn't have the benefit of AI then, but it was pretty obvious that we needed AI. So I began a sort of part-time career following all of the progress in artificial intelligence. The initial versions of our technology we built were based around machine learning, some really unique algorithms, a simple card-based user interface on top of Salesforce, and we got great outcomes from that. And people may not know, OpenAI began life in 2015. I eagerly have followed their progress, and we had all of the back end of our software application for CRM ready to go, just waiting for API access to AIs. And so early this year, literally from March, we were on the market with our Sentia AI product. But that journey has come from what do users need from CRM? How can we do that with the technology we had at the time? And then we've aggressively iterated to use now AI in our application. But whether you go with our app or something else, it's critical that CRM answers those questions. It needs to tell people what they need to do, how they're traveling towards quotas and benchmarks, and not require a lot from sales teams. So that's kind of my journey, David.
Okay, well, thank you for that background. And if our admin could throw up the URLs, I think some of our listeners were looking for the webpage that can go and find those cheat sheets. It hasn't gotten a chance to show up yet. So, Dave, with that interesting background and the journey, so it sounds like you kind of had this vision in mind of how AI would help you, but in the process, you were using machine learning, pattern matching, and stuff like that, algorithms to mimic AI, which is why you were able to do it quickly when it actually happened. So with that in mind, and with all the stuff that Michael talked about when he was talking about the CRM issues he sees, what do you think are the top 3 mistakes that companies can make when they're trying to figure out, I know I need to integrate AI into my CRM, but what are the top 3 things I need to look out for?
I think, and I concur with Michael, he brought up a couple of these issues. So my 3, I guess, are the first one is manage expectations. When you invest, AI is a significant investment in a CRM, and you need to understand that it's going to be a learning journey. So you're going to have to carefully select the appropriate AI technology for your business. You're going to have to carefully manage that deployment through your CRM, and there's lots of ways to do that. And you need to realize it's going to take some time to generate a good return on that. And there's a few ways you can shortcut that and save time by working with people like Michael or ourselves. But you need to manage expectations and realize it's a journey, like my journey. And it's going to take some time to deliver results, but they are there and you can get those results. So that's my first.
That makes sense to me, Dave. So when I think about that, most of the folks that are going to invest in a CRM, the CSO, the CROs, the CMOs, they have a very short tenure, right? So they don't have 2 or 3 years to wait for a system to be built, right? So with that in mind, and thinking about how AI and CRM interact, are there areas that they can actually attack right now and have a fix in 2 or 3 months versus the old software is I got to wait how many months or a year, right? Is there something they can do right now that you would recommend?
Well, I mean, aside from a gratuitous plug for our product,
Okay.
The major CRM firms are all bringing in pieces of AI now. There's some hurdles to that, but there's some easy things you can do depending on your CRM of choice. Salesforce.com have some Ironstone GPT features that are slowly rolling out. Dynamics has a close integration with Bing and their new Copilot product. So there are some things you can do, but the real game changers in AI will take some time. So you asked me for 3, David. The second one in there is data. So CRMs only operate from quality data, particularly when AI is involved. You can't feed an AI lousy data. So by data quality, I mean clean up duplicates, but also make it complete. So fill in missing information, and that requires some help from your team. So my second and third kind of blur together. The data quality means also that all of your sales team need to embrace your CRM. or the data in there around pipeline and their activity is going to be missing and flawed. So the worst thing you can do is invest in an AI in your CRM unless your team is embracing that CRM, because the data won't be complete. And so the AI will bring up actionable insights, but they'll be false, they'll be flawed. So the three are basically manage expectations. The second one's data quality. The third one is, and Michael mentioned this user adoption. So unless your team are aggressively using their CRM, unless they love it and they use it every single day and they put all of their activity into the CRM and they keep their pipeline and their forecasts up to date, then the AI is going to struggle to add value for you. So it's those three: manage expectations, data quality, and user adoption is critical for success in a CRM with AI.
Got it.
Yeah, and
So,
I'm going to,
go ahead, Michael.
if you don't mind, Dave, I'm going to, boy, it's easy with 2 days. I'm going to piggyback on what Dave just said. Is people, and you don't see this, at least I haven't seen it, is you have to realize that a CRM tool is in my mind ultimately a sharing tool, and people have to get into a willingness to get into a sharing mindset. With AI, it's even more important. Without an AI, it's still important. If you only have, I've had many executives say, we're going to build this tool for, one department, and if you build it, that infamous quote, if you build it, they will come.
Right.
I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't work. And the reason is with regards to either one of these, my opinion, Dave, feel free to correct me, is that you can't have a small group of people sharing, meaning putting information into the system, but then have a large group taking information out. One, it makes the first team enormously upset at the fact that they're doing all the heavy lifting. And two, the answers that are coming out, well, how can they be appropriate for the rest of the firm if they're only based upon a group's information? And I know it sounds nice and it sounds like it will work, but it really doesn't. And there is a very big non-technical mindset that has to happen that says, I'm a user, I'm all in, and get that. So sorry to interrupt you, David, but
I think that's and actually that's going to come up later, because I'm a big believer in blended AI, which is exactly what you're talking about. So going back to David, so one of the things that you told me before the show that was interesting is your AI actually uses multiple applications and multiple AIs to solve a problem. So it's not just one part of it; it's multiple things. So when you look about the Silicon Valley hype cycle, we know there's thousands of AI companies now that are startups and they look amazing, but they're going to burn out. Or Sam Altman is going to say, hey, that's on my roadmap. You might have a $1 billion valuation today, but in 6 months, you're going to be worth a fat zero. So how do you, as an IT guy helping to work with your clients, just like Michael does, how do you work on that hype cycle, the companies that oversell and overpromise their AI when it comes to this? And you're like, well, which ones do I choose to use? Because there's so much smoke and mirrors out there. How do you do it?
It's actually a good question. The challenge at the moment is this year, obviously, all of us have played with AI, and there's ChatGPT's the sort of big elephant in the room, but Bard's coming along. Bing is in Edge now to the right of everyone's browser. Claude does a really great job and is aggressively competing with ChatGPT. So there's all these choices. And then Salesforce have Einstein GPT, Dynamics is bringing in Copilot. What do you choose? So in terms of the hype cycle, companies of all sizes really have to be quite cautious that you don't bet on the wrong horse. And so how you avoid that is by finding a trusted advisor. So someone like us or someone else like us, whether it's us or someone else, I meant to say, you need someone who's riding that horse and living that day to day, because choices change. As you said, David, in Sentia AI, what we've done several times this year is alter the APIs we point to bring AI outcomes into CRM. So early on, ChatGPT was the only choice. So for several of our features within Salesforce.com, we have used ChatGPT. For some other applications, for other features, we've now switched and we use Claude. We're looking at a couple of other options for some other features. So we switch and change as their features and services shift and change. So you kind of got to be on that. So if you're a really large corporate, it would make sense for you to start building an AI knowledge base internally, whether that's find a key staff person with an interest, but someone who can follow that and advise you. But for all the other businesses out there that can't justify an investment in a dedicated AI expert, find a company like Sentia AI or someone else who could act as your trusted advisor in that enterprise software space. And without necessarily even selling you anything, giving you that advice day to day, saying, look, you guys want this particular outcome. This is an option for you. This is the best option. And then coming back to you and saying, look, 6 months later, this has shifted and now you should be changing which tool you choose to connect to. So you do need to kind of aggressively manage that at the moment until things mature, which I suspect will be in the next 2 or 3 years, but not yet. So the short answer is you need a trusted advisor of some sort that can point you in the right direction as the AI landscape shifts.
Gotcha. So one of the things that I often hear, and especially with banks and financial services companies, insurers and stuff like that, they're like, "Oh, I'm scared, right? I let Johnny down there in marketing use ChatGPT, and all of a sudden I got this flood of stuff in our system, and now I'm scared to use it." We've talked about LLM data silos and stuff like that, but we all have 2 or 3 million to go to Deloitte or KPMG to pay for the systems. So do you think there's a real risk of data privacy and data security? Because both you guys talked about how important data is. And it's like, a lot of these AIs like ChatGPT, I don't think some folks know everything's in the clear that they type in and comes back, right? Do you really want your sales and marketing department to have that kind of scary access with your material? Is that a big deal, Dave, or should I not worry?
No. I think it's something that every company needs to consider. And usually when I have a discussion with someone, I say to them, what is your business's threshold of risk? So if you're dealing with a health company, health provider, or a bank, or a financial institution, or insurance company, there's legislative requirements around data privacy. So you really need to be very selective about what you do with AI in that case. For a lot of other businesses, there's some data that they certainly wouldn't want to feed into a large language model through an API connection to an AI. But then there's other data that's not so private. So it is case by case and industry by industry, which is another argument why you need a trusted advisor to work that through with you. As I'm saying the words, I realize that probably sends a message to most companies just to steer clear of AI because it's still too hard. But there's a severe risk if you were to do that. You really need to be educating your firm on these issues and challenges, hence the trusted advisor pitch.
Well, that kind of leads to my next question, David, which is right along those lines. Should, is there a certain size business? Is it like 50 and under or 250? I mean, should business just skip introducing AI now because it's still too new? Let my competitors work it out. Let them get the bruises and the bumps, and then I'll get the best stuff afterwards. Is that something that they should do, or is that you're missing too big of a opportunity?
Yeah, no, I don't think too. I mean, obviously, small businesses may be able to wait a while, but anyone sort of mid-size and above can't afford to wait. This AI is going to be a tool of trade for companies, so all of your competitors are not going to wait. They're going to be investing. And they're going to be making mistakes, admittedly, but they're going to actually have it in place and generate productivity benefits. AI is a huge game changer for businesses. So to just say, "Oh, it's all too hard, I think I'll wait," could be a very risky strategy. I'm aware that there's workload behind not waiting. You're going to have to put time into understanding this thing, educate yourself with webinars like this, but you can't afford to just wait if you're at least mid-size and above. Because you'll be left behind. It reminds me of a time when cell phones came out and everyone wanted to use their own cell phone at work. And companies tried to stick their head in the sand, but often that meant that they had data privacy issues until sort of the mobile device management software space caught up and let everyone now takes their own mobile phone to work and it's not an issue. AI is a bit like that. You really can't afford to wait because other companies are going to be using it and getting benefits from it. And it's here. So whether we like it or not, it's in the environment. Other businesses are going to be gaining from the use of this AI. And again, it's about getting really good advice.
Got it. So it's like Service Cloud 10 years ago. It's like every 5 or 10 years, right, Michael? There's a new gotta have thing. And it's like, when do you jump on that adoption cycle, right?
Well, here's the interesting thing. To support what David was just saying is, regardless if you're jumping into AI, next week, next month, the preparatory work that has to be done, so regarding data cleanup and process improvement, well, even if you didn't do AI, which I think you should, but even if you did, the work that you have to do to get from here to there
Right.
is only going to benefit you. So once you've done that hard back end work, putting an AI layer in to help you in whatever you need, whether it's additional research on companies or sales patterns or whatever. Once again, it's to me it's all good, and who wouldn't benefit from better data in their system, or better gathering information, or the better processes to get that information. So I think I would, which is kind of funny because I'm not the AI guy, but I would say there's no time like the present. Even you put your big toe in the pool, you need to get going.
Yeah, you need to get going.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, especially with the short tenure for the the C-level sales type roles, it's like anything to differentiate yourself is something you're going to explore. And I know, David, you talked on a number of occasions about salespeople are not tech adverse. They're adverse to stuff that doesn't work. So I think there's a big difference there. So, hey, Dave, really appreciate your input and your insights. And that was pretty awesome information. Is there someplace listeners can go to get like AI and CRM integration cheat sheets?
Yeah. So we've got a landing page set up. People can the link's in the LinkedIn commentary, but we'll message everyone after the webinar as well, because there's been a few comments saying they can't see the links. So
yeah, so it's Sentia-USA.com. Was that it?
No, that's not it. It's giveaways.sentia.community. But I'll put it in the chat. I'll send it to everyone in messages anyway after the event. And what's on there is all of Michael's giveaways, as well as some from us, and contact details, obviously.
Awesome.
So if people have questions, and contact details doesn't mean you're going to get one of my aggressive SDRs trying to book a demo with you. It can be just questions. Like if anyone wants to email me with questions, I'm more than happy to answer them without you having to open your checkbook.
Or Michael, I'm sure as well. So
true. Right.
Yeah.
That's true for myself. I mean, you guys truly, I love talking about this stuff. I'm a bit of a nerd on all this stuff, so I'm more than happy just to talk about it, and you're not going to get any pressure or anything.
Yeah, and you can get both these gentlemen on LinkedIn as well as their emails, which we're going to supply later. So now we're going to move into Act 3, guys. And now we have our CRM expert. I feel like we're in the Hollywood Squares right down here. We've got Michael, the CRM expert, and up here we've got David Forder, the AI visionary. So what I'm going to talk about now is have a little round table where I'm going to throw out a question, and I want us all to kind of like riff off and figure out, hey, you know what, maybe yes, maybe no. But, at the end of the day, you guys definitely have the battle scars and experience to help any organization. You both clearly said that, and you can see that with your book and the cheat sheets and all that stuff. So if I'm looking at an organization with a green CRM install, meaning they've never used a CRM, what are you seeing as the biggest potential success factors? And what do you see as the future of AI and CRM integrating in the next year? Not 2-3 years out, but in the next year, what is possible versus the hype?
All right, I'll go first, Michael. I think the appropriate answer for someone who is about to embark on a new CRM, whether they've had one before or not. You've all had a CRM of some sort, even if it's Outlook storing contact details. That's a CRM. But if you've invested in a new CRM, obviously most likely cloud-based, whether it's Salesforce or Dynamics or HubSpot or NetSuite, there's a few things that you really need to do out of the bag. Firstly, you need to budget 3 to 4 times more than you spent on the seats in the CRM. on configuring it for your own processes. And there's tricks in that. It's important you configure them for the processes that your team follow every day. Now, that may not be the processes you think your team follow every day. So we spend a lot of time doing discovery with clients, drilling into, well, what does corporate think their sales process is, and what's actually their sales process day to day by the team. So you need to do a kind of reconciliation. So there's a lot of preparation. I think Michael mentioned that beforehand, and then you need to spend the money to configure it to meet your team's needs, whatever they are. You then need to make sure that it's not a burden on the customer-facing teams, so that they can, fit it in their day, and then it's not just even more of a burden and they opt out. So that's kind of the first couple, but I've got a list of 6 I could drone for hours.
So, Michael, I know you talked about this in the first section. What do you see as is it the adoption issue? Because I thought you made a really good point. You're saying, you know what, go and find the biggest whiners and complainers about the system. And to Dave's point, what is it they're really upset about? Because what I've seen sometimes, and please elaborate, is the biggest complainers are the ones that never tried or never actually turned the system on. Because I know my Excel spreadsheet works, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and don't tell me what to do. But how would you tackle what Dave was talking about?
Right. So I'm going to add a little bit of a twist on what Dave said.
Please do.
I would say a couple things. Firstly, hard analytical study on the processes that exist prior to a formal CRM system come in play is of paramount importance, because almost certainly those processes have morphed over the years from the pen and paper triplicate form days, and moving them into a modern system is one of the major reasons why systems fail. So yes, the study has to get done, but a little bit of a qualifying statement I would add to that, particularly true for what I would say smaller sized companies, is a lot of the CRM systems have pre-canned workflow. And it is worthwhile for a project team with the eventual users of the system to say, what is it about that pre-canned system that you couldn't live with? Meaning, it is possible that a pre-canned system that is already running in any one of the systems you just mentioned, or even more so in a niche purpose-built CRM system, that may be better than anything you're going to come up with. And it's a worthwhile effort to look at this. That's the first thing I would say. And I forget, David, what your question is specific that I interrupted myself with about.
No. We were talking about, one of the biggest problems, and both of you guys brought it up, was user adoption. So my question to you was, do you see AI as assisting that? And further to that, you talked about that most difficult person that,
right.
Always, I'm not going to use a CRM.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So, I guess most people hopefully have realized that my book is actually not called How to Mess Up a CRM or How Not to Mess Up a CRM. It has a little more of a adult word in it. But I wrote my book itself with it has some humor in it, but it's certainly a serious book. There are a group of people that are difficult, and I use some choice color words in the book to call them, and it's meant as a term of endearment much more than accusatory. But finding a difficult person, especially if you can find a well-respected, like a high producer, a well-respected but difficult person, if you can flip them, if you can say, look, I'm going to make this so perfect for you, but I need your vocal support, that will go so far. I mean, more than buying a couple $100,000 widget to clip onto the side of the system. That simple thing, and that's one of those frustrations I said why I started writing the book. If you can find the difficult people and get them to be on your side, And then when you announce it more formally to the larger audience at your firm and say that person and that person is part of the project team, people are just going to be like, what? And
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
it is
agree.
a really big deal.
Yeah.
But the only thing I would say is once you get them, you better have a monthly or bi-monthly or whatever the frequency call with them to ensure that they are still liking the system after go live.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I agree wholeheartedly, Michael. When we do go into a business and help them with CRM user adoption, exactly right. You've got to find those thought leaders amongst particularly the sales team or the service teams. The ones that everyone looks to. They may be more senior roles and they may not be, but they're the ones that people are going to follow. And you need to include them in that configuration piece. So get their input and listen to their input. Don't ignore it. And as you say, they will bring everyone else along with them to adopting the CRM.
And that kind of leads me to my next question here, guys. And we always think back to the Terminator movies, and AI is going to take over the world and take our jobs. And jokingly, for the last 9 months, I've been saying, hey, you know what? AI is not going to take your job. It's the guy that's using AI or the gal that's using AI, or they are the ones that hybrid or blended AI. They're the ones that are going to take your job. So let me throw it out to you guys and get your perspective. Michael, what do you think? Is AI going to replace salespeople within the next 12 months?
No, it is going to greatly enhance people with ambition, with adaptability skills, with wanting to take their career to the next step. It's going to greatly enhance them. It's not going to replace. Well, I should say never, but it's in large, like in a big broad stroke. It's not getting rid of jobs, but it will speed up the life cycle of a lot of what I would call manual steps, research steps, things like that. It'll definitely speed them up. But from a professional services or a sales standpoint, if you're a salesperson and you're using AI or you have the access to have AI help you point you in the right direction, it's going to supercharge it.
Yeah, I
Got it.
think I agree partly with Michael. I think certainly, again, I'm not trying to plug our product, but with Sentia AI installed on a CRM, we can definitely make sales teams more productive. We never go in and say that means you can cut the size of your team, but it means you can sell more because they're more productive, and potentially, yes, you could probably do with less. But in terms of replacing the whole sales role, no, I agree with Michael on that. I think there's a lot of hype around that at the moment. As I said earlier, AI will be a tool of trade like cell phones. Every company is going to have it in their enterprise software, and so it will still come back down to that person-to-person relationship selling. So it will make salespeople more effective for certain, but it will make everyone's salespeople more effective. So you'll still have to build relationships with buyers. And I jokingly yesterday said to someone, the only time that AI will completely replace sales teams is at the point where AIs have completely replaced buyers, because then you can do the AI to AI selling buying journey and you won't need relationships. But that's a 10-15 year horizon, I think.
All right, well, that's actually a little bit scary, but I can definitely see some merit. And I think both of you are backing up my idea is blended AI is the answer. Trying to take the best of both worlds and putting those together is really going to make the more powerful salesperson. It's not one or the other. So that really makes sense to me. So I know our listeners are like, oh my goodness, that's an amazing amount of information. Those cheat sheets are going to be great. What are the top 3 takeaways from each of you as far as the advice that you could give for CRM and AI? The top 3, just give me 3 quick here because we're running short on time, but give me 3 things. Michael, 3 takeaways.
Boy, when it's difficult questions, you ask me first. I'm picking up a trend here, Dave. I would say the biggest the takeaway is once you've picked a tool, just don't go down a technical list. There's a huge human factor. There are many processes, and you need to talk to many people to ensure you get it right, because leaving someone out will create a maelstrom of a problem for you. Secondly, proper data collection taxonomy. Those make a huge difference, even if you don't see it up front. I mean, when you're developing a CRM tool, it is very easy to go to 10 different departments, and some call it company and some call it company US or whatever. You really need to push back and say, why are we doing it that way? And and explain to people this is what's going to happen. And then lastly, I mentioned it earlier. Ultimately, CRM is a sharing tool that has amazing abilities to give you insight to information, but the sharing part of it is a human skill that has to be adopted, or it will not work. It just won't work.
Got it.
If people perceive it to be an extra manual task that they have to do every day at work, you're going to get hodgepodge information, and therefore when somebody goes to look for something, they're going to get bad information back out, and then that person's going to say, you know what, I can't trust anything in that system, and that's death.
What do you think, Dave?
So in terms of 3 takeaways, there's actually one of our audiences, Bentley, has said, how can it help a new seller? And I think my first takeaway is AI in a CRM, the number one value add is it can reduce that time to productivity for new staff. So when you hire a salesperson, depending on what research you look at, it can take anyone from 45 days to 70 days to be really productive and effective. They have to learn their territory. They have to understand the history, what's happened with each of the customers they inherit, all of their dynamic, what those companies are looking like and what they look for. And that takes a long time. Implementing AI effectively on your CRM with something like Sentia AI, will get new staff productive literally from the day they understand your product range. So with a couple of days product training, our AI will have a new rep up and running almost instantly. Sentia surfaces cards telling them what to do, who to call, who to meet, everything they need to know about their leads and their accounts, all on a simple card-based UI, but enough of a plug. But it can get new staff inducted and productive almost immediately. That's the first one. The second takeaway is AI in a CRM, aside from the glamorous things we've all seen, writing emails and call summaries and the things that are going to sell it, the really powerful uses of AI in a CRM are the things that aren't obvious. We bring in an AI tool in a partnership with another firm, Active Prime, that actually cleans the data in your CRM. So it's removing duplicates, it's enriching the data, it's adding in titles, phone numbers, emails, and it's doing it all automatically in the background, so that it fixes that problem. So it's not a glamorous application of AI, but it's one that works immediately in the back end, doesn't disrupt anyone's job, but makes the company far more effective and the CRM far more effective. So that's the second. The third one is another use of AI that is available now through us and others, but basically we'll go out and mine the internet. So we're in a partnership with a group called KnowledgeNet. So for every lead in a Salesforce CRM anyway with Sentia, it will go out and hunt down information on that lead from the internet, or mine your email exchange server, or mine LinkedIn, and bring all that into the leads page or the accounts page on the CRM. And again, it's not glamorous, it just does the hard work that salespeople shouldn't have to be spending time on. So to finish, Salesforce had a study came out earlier this year that showed 72% of salespeople's time isn't spent selling. So they're only left with 27% for a whole long list of reasons. With these features alone, you can flip that around. So all of a sudden they have 77% of their time to sell and only 27% of time on those less productive activities. So that's my 3 takeaways. They're kind of the real nuts and bolts of how AI can add value in a business.
Okay, so here's what we've got. Unfortunately, we're down to 5 minutes, so I'm going to put you two on the spot because I'm based on all these questions that I'm seeing and going back and forth. Would you guys be willing, and I'm putting you on the spot, to give the first 5 people that email you 1 free hour of AI and CRM consulting, no strings attached? Would you be willing to do that for our listeners?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
All right. So I'm sorry, I should have asked you guys ahead of time, but based on this Q&A here, it seems like that would be really helpful for all these folks. So So we're going to have the URL to Michael's book, and Michael's giving you a discount for the next 24 hours only. The cheat sheets that both Michael and David's organizations have are available. And let's talk. Is there some questions here that we could answer, guys?
I think there was quite a few comments, but they couldn't see the link. We'll make sure that we send a message to everyone who's asked about that, everyone who's in the event anyway. We'll send a follow-up email with all of those details attached, Michael's book link, the access to the giveaways and stuff. So I'll make sure everyone gets it. Anyone who doesn't, just message me on LinkedIn anyway, and I'll make sure it gets sent through. But give us some hours.
I would say something about setting expectations, what Dave was talking about. A huge part, and you were talking about the percentages of salespeople. Many expectations that are not met by leaders have to go back to ROI. And it's extremely hard to give a true ROI number based upon just pure CRM. The AI that he was just talking about would be a phenomenal tool to help prove that. We're getting this many more calls out. We're doing this much less of whatever this other manual task is. That's huge.
Yep, we've got that.
So, guys, we're running out of time. We're down to like 2 minutes. I can see questions from Christina George and a couple others. If we don't get to your questions here, guys, I promise you we will follow up with you individually afterwards. So let's see Christina's question here. What do you recommend for an AI company for CRMs for businesses in the financial industry that are heavily regulated through the SEC? That's a great question, Christina. When do you guys want to grab that with the last minute we have left?
Yeah, I'll talk to it. Rather than recommend an AI for a CRM for that heavily regulated industry, we kind of understand it pretty well because we've got a client who works in the fin services business. It's about, you can bring AI into your CRM. So if you're using Salesforce.com, which is more likely than not for most at the moment, then their Einstein GPT products are going to provide you some feature sets at a cost, and you won't have any concerns about privacy and data issues. Some of the features they're providing are great, but it's not as expansive as it could be. And for that, you'd need to engage a sort of private company like mine or some other to work through those, what you're allowed to do with GDPR. I always said it the wrong way around, but GDPR, and HIPAA. But you can use, if you're using Salesforce, look at their Einstein GPT range. You won't have any concerns around data issues with that. And then separately, look at what other things you can bring in and still be compliant. So it can be a two-stage process, I guess.
Gotcha.
Salesforce.com is probably, Microsoft Dynamics may disagree, but they're probably the safest choice for fin services businesses. You will have no data privacy issues with implementing their AI offers, and where
their enterprise grade, right? That's what
they're right on top of it.
So, Laura, you made a really good comment here, and you talked about the challenge for CRM use and adoption is the usefulness to the user. And I think the three of us could not agree with you more. You're spot on with that. If the system doesn't give back more than the time it takes, people are not going to want to use it. And then Michael and David both brought up the point that if for some reason the information they put up is wrong, you stop believing in the system. So, Michael, could you give us some, and we've got about 60 seconds left, anything for our listeners to take away? And both these guys' cheat sheets, information are all going to be in the LinkedIn later. And I'm sorry for some of you that couldn't see it during it. Michael.
Yeah. First, I have a chapter on this, and I do actually have a pie chart that I talk about that factor, that you have to understand, and once again through a process of listening to the professionals that are going to be using the system in this case, is see how much they spend on just generic administrative tasks, whether it's time reports, expense, what they have somewhere in their head built how much time they're willing to give, and whatever that number is. After the implementation of CRM, if that piece of the pie has not gone down, you have problems. If it stayed the same, it's still a problem. You better have really boosted the output. But if it's more than, let's just say 10% whatever their number is, you must go back to the drawing board. It is a real mental block. I unfortunately have hit that wall many times. And you could say, hey, it's 1% more, but you're in 10% back. They will never get past the 1% more. It must be reduced. The AI tools that David was speaking to help with that. But then I think the easiest way to pick up on that 1% is go over the process itself. Usually, more times than not, process has a manual step involved in it that doesn't need to be there.
Appreciate that, Michael. Dave, we've hit the 1 hour mark. So can you give us a 60-second synopsis on what we've learned today? And again, everybody can see his cheat sheets and all the paper he's written on his LinkedIn profile, as well as the Sentia USA page, which he's going to include later. Go ahead, David. Can't hear you, David.
Yes, I managed to get right to the end before that happened. As I said before, we'll make sure everyone gets all those links. But just the synopsis, I guess, is AI is something that's here now. It's not something that's coming. Your competitors are aggressively looking at implementing AI into their CRMs now. So you really have to do it. But it is fraught with some not so much dangers as risks. So you need to find a trusted advisor or bring one in-house yourself. So find someone in your company that loves AI and is willing to sort of do all that legwork for you. Don't just put it off, because you will get left behind. And it is a changing landscape at the moment. Literally every week, Amazon launched their business assistant yesterday called Q. Every week there's new changes in the marketplace in terms of AI, and you do need to stay on top of it to make sure that you take full advantage from it, because other people will. We have a community site, and this is a free community, so there's no cost. I'm not selling it. At sentia.community, where we post every day what we think people need to know across the gamut of industries. So at least subscribe and you'll get those posts and you can stay on top of things there. It's kind of business. It's not only business oriented, but we definitely stay on top of everything that's happening and post it there for our clients and other interested people. So take a look at that as well. That'll be one of the links that we send out.
And you said there was a monthly subscription fee to that?
No fee. It's all free.
Oh, it's free. Okay, great. Hey, well, I appreciate both of your time. It's been a great discussion. Anybody that has the opportunity to read best-selling author Michael Hudlow's books,
Right.
How Not to Mess Up Your CRM, please check it out. And he's giving everybody a discount. We've got cheat sheets for all of you from both of our authors. Boy, guys, really appreciate your time. This is a topic that has become more and more pertinent as we get into 2024. And I'm looking forward to seeing how many of the perspectives both of you brought come to pass, because it seems like you really have your hand on the CRM and AI pulse, if you will. Thank you, guys.
One quick thing, Dave, keep an eye on this space. We're going to do another webinar, another conversation in a couple of weeks, just with a retrospective look for business at 2023 in terms of AI, all the shifts and turns and where we've ended up at the end of the year. So it'll be a good summary of where everything is at for each of the AI providers and CRM.
Yep, and I have an add-on book coming out in the next 2 months,
Awesome.
which is about AI and CRM too. So it'll be a good bookend for the first.
Thanks, David.
Fabulous. We'll look forward to hearing about that, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Michael. Happy holidays, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Bye-bye.